Interview, please. Okay, so we have an entrance fee. For residents, it's 25 rupees, and for non-residents, it's 150 rupees per person. We have 6 galleries in total in the museum. We have 3 on the ground floor and 3 on the first floor. You are allowed to take photos, but with no flash. We also have some rules and regulations. You can go through it afterwards. If you would like a guide, we also can assist you with one.
My name is Karl Asba. I'm the museum assistant at the National History Museum of Seychelles. We start from here. Over here you can see the 3 main languages that the Seychelles speak. We have French, English, and in Creole. Creole is the national language. From the beginning, as you can see from here, the early stage of the Seychelles was in 851 to 915, which was being explored by the famous historian Al-Masudi from the Oman. And he named all the islands Zairun or Zarin. That means to visit our sister. And they have been coming back from here back and forth for 68 years. Then in 1502, we have some Portuguese who passed by, and Vasco da Gama also on his way from Portugal to India. Then, as you have seen here also, we have many shipwrecks which have occurred during sometimes in the Seychelles territory. The one that you can see, it's areas which sunk in 1763. From here, you can see all the relics. This was a bell. As the Portuguese, whenever they arrive on an island or on a country, they place the bell. That means they took possession of that place. And from here also, and in the 17th century, the pirates used to go around the sea of the Seychelles to attack many boats. They attacked the British boat, the French boat, and the Arab boat. The famous pirates that roamed the Seychelles Sea was Olivier de Passer, alias La Bise. Together with Captain Keats, John Taylor, they robbed many ships. One of the famous ships that they have robbed is VSG Cap, a Portuguese ship on his way to Goa in India. They took biggest treasure who was supposed to be buried here. When they arrived here, they stayed for 5 years with 950 men. They were supposed to be buried the treasure at Belong. Still now, we haven't found the treasure. In 1730, he was caught on the coast of Madagascar. He was taken to Bourbon, which was at that time, nowadays it's Réunion, and he was sentenced to death. Before he died, on the paper, written in 17 lines, which a cryptogram, which was written by himself, he threw the paper into the crowd and shouted, "Whoever can understand the writing will discover my treasure." Until now, nobody hasn't found the treasure. From here you can see a cannon from a Portuguese ship called Eres was sunk in 1678. Then after that, in 1742, a guy named Lazapico came to Seychelles. After 3 months, they lost at sea from Mauritius. They lost at sea, they were on their way to India, but they anchored here. He anchored at the southwest part of Mahé, where he named the main island Ile d'Abondance. That means the islands of abundance, where there was coconut, tortoise, water, and many things that they took with them to Mauritius. When they arrived in Mauritius, he reported this to the Governor General of Mauritius. At that time, Mauritius was called Ile-de-France, who was Maï de la Bourdonnais. Then in 1744, he came back again, and he named the island Mahé in the honor of Maï de la Bourdonnais. And he named all the islands La Bourdonnais Islands. Then they left, the French didn't come again to Seychelles. Then in 1756, a guy named Nicolas Barfay came to Seychelles with this stone to take possession of this island. This is a volcanic stone which measures 57 centimeters by 57. On it, you can see the coat of arms from the French monarchy at that time, Louis XV. So he renamed the island Seychelles after this guy here, Zambo de Seychelles, who was the Minister of Finance at that time. Then after that, the island was left alone until 1770, when a group of French settlers, they came to Mahe on a boat called Telemaque. Together there was 28 of them who will start the first settlement on Saint Anne Island. Then after that, in 1772, they left Saint Anne, they came to Mahe to start the establishment on Mahe. After that, in 1778, a guy called, you can see his picture there, Charles de Umerville, who was a lieutenant in the army, the French army, who was based in Pondicherry in India, came to establish the establishment. What that means? The establishment for the king. They were staying up there where the president office now, it's called State House. Then after he left the Seychelles, he went back to Réunion and to go back to France. Then the second guy who came here was the second French governor was Philomène de Malava. Philomène de Malava was the first man who introduced the regulation for economic activities in the Seychelles. He was mostly to preserve the island, the environment. After he left, we have a guy called Karl Asba, who was sent here by the governor of Mauritius. Karl Asba here, he was the first British governor and the last French governor. Karl Asba used to be a slave master. He has 80 slaves under his command. And he passed away in 1827 and he was buried there at State House. And from here, you can see many slave pictures. This slave was the Arab slave, who was stolen sometimes by a guy called Corsair, who was a corsair who was based here. He was also a pirate. And these people came from the Mozambique, Pemba, Kilwa, on the way to Zanzibar. So they intercepted their boat and took them here. The children were sent to a place called Mission up there at the mountain at Capicet. And their parents were sent to the plantation where they will be used as slaves for agriculture product. From here you can see many artifacts that they used to be like handcuff the slave on their way to here. Then on the 1862, we have 2 days there were heavy rainfall. And the rain come from the mountain until to here. And many people was buried alive. And from here you can see the picture of the Protestant church who was the only building that withstand the flood. This was also used to give handouts and to give medical care to many people. And from here, in 1982, when they were digging a hole to put a pipe, they discovered all the relics from the landslide. And from here, you can see General Gordon, who came here on his visit, and the place where all the flood ended, it reclaimed a piece of land which was called Gordon Square. And from this picture, you can see the Gordon Square, the field which was filled up by the debris from the landslide. And here was the picture of the first hotel to be built here. It was called Equator Hotel. It was based just across the road here. And from here, you can see a picture from the first people who came to give religious knowledge to the people of Seychelles. It was called Père Léonid Affranchi. This was in 1852. He came here for about 2 months to convert people into Christianity. And from here, you can see many agricultural industry, because at that time, Seychelles' economic activity was mostly about agriculture. From here, you can see cotton, which was planted here and exported to the US. Also, we used to have coconut. Coconut, we get the copra that we get oil from it. Then we have guano, which was a bird dropping. that was used in fertilizer in many plantations, like in the sugar plantation, maize plantation. Then we also have vanilla, which was introduced here from Réunion. And also we have cinnamon leaf that we get the cinnamon oil from it. We also introduced rubber, which was introduced from Malaysia to here to get the rubber to be able to export it. Then we have a fragment called patchouli. Also we get the oil from it, and the oil you get the perfume. These were all the economic activity before the tourism industry. Then after the tourism in the opening of the airport in 1972, all this was phased out. And from here, you can see many political prisoners who was sent here by the British. Up there, you can see the Sultan Parex from Malaysia who was sent here. And also, opposite him, you can see the house where he used to live. You can the famous king also from Kumasi, Ashanti, Gold Coast of Ashanti from Ghana, which was Mr. Prempeh, King Prempeh. Here you can see him, his father and mother, and all his tribal chief. And from here also you can see the Archbishop Macarius was the Archbishop from Cyprus. He was exiled here. After he returned back to Cyprus, he was the president. He was elected the president. And you can see also the King Kabarega from Uganda. You can see Ali, Mr. Ali, Sultan of the tribe Wanzo Ali from Somalia, and the late president of Sudovai Island from Maldives, Mr. Abdul Afif. This you can see the picture of Mr. Abdul Afif on his way to here with his 4 children. Altogether he has 6 children, and he passed away in 1993. And from here you can see this building. It was called, before it was the first building to be built here in Victoria. It was to be built to use as a bank. This was in the 1885. This was cost 130,000 rupees to build this building. Then after the bank was bankrupt, the building was sold to the government for 30,000 rupees. And it was the court, then the register for land. Then in 2018, the building was transferred to be now the National History Museum. And this building also is one of the National Monument of Seychelles. And from here, you can see the smallest statue of Queen Victoria of England, who was also the empress from in India and all the Commonwealth countries. And here is the time of the British. At that time, Seychelles was together with Mauritius. Everything was came from Mauritius. All the other everything that you have to do for marriage certificate, birth certificate, all was from Mauritius. But in 1903, we became a crown colony, and Mr. Ernest Scott was elected the first governor of the British to here. This in 1903 also, he opened the clock tower outside to celebrate the 63 years since Queen Victoria was on throne. And from here you can see the statue of Queen Victoria and his son, Prince Edward, then the son of Prince Edward, Prince George. And from here you can see the first female doctor from Seychelles, which was Madame Stevenson Delon, was the first female doctor. And also he has a political party. He first wanted to own a political party. This was in 1939. And over here you can see in 1924 we have the opening of the first big hospital that will accommodate all the people of Seychelles. Many people were born here in this hospital. And from here you can see the Seychelles Pioneer Corps, which was sent to Egypt during the Second World War. And from here you can see the girls' school, because at that time girl was separate from boy. You can see the girls' school, which was based there at Freedom Square. And from here the Seychelles College, which accommodate all the boys. And here, this is the first Catholic priest, Mr. Santab, James Santab. And from here, also the first Seychellois Chief Justice, Mr. Patrick Montag. And from here, you can see the model of Port Victoria, how it was before in 1960. During the 1960, before the reclamation. And from here, you can see the museum, then the clock tower, then you can see the Market Street also. And this is the President House, now State House. And over here, you can see two political figures in the politics of Seychelles. It was Mr. Montcalm, who was a pro-British, and Mr. Albert René, who was more a socialist government. And during that time, there was many rallies and strike under these two guys. And as you know, the Seychelles was moving away from agricultural industry to a tourism industry. First, they have to build many infrastructure. The first infrastructure to be built was the dam at the Wousson, which was cost about 8 million rupees. Then we have the airport. It was built in 1971 and it was opened in 1972 by the Queen Elizabeth, the actual Queen of England. Then in 1969, the people of Seychelles was asking for independence. So the British said both parties, they have to have a constitution, and they were taken to London to form the constitution. And from here you can see the airport and the opening of the airport. And here, after the constitution was established, they have to form a coalition government. This was in 1975. And here was the first bishop for the Catholic religion in the Seychelles. And from here, you can see three trophy, which was given by the British government to the Seychelles government. This is a German machine gun, and this was the bell, and this was the German helmet. This was taken from this ship, the German warship Königsberg, which was sank near to the coast of Sweden during the Second World War. And from here, now we enter into the nationhood. Then in 1976, on the 29th June 1976, the Seychelles got its independence from the British. And from here, you can see Mr. Montcalm taking the oath to be the president. There was no election at that time. It was an arrangement between the government of England and to the Prime Minister, which was at that time Mr. James Montcalm, and he became president. Just 1 year later, Mr. Montcalm was overthrown by a coup by his Prime Minister, Mr. Albert René. And Albert René ruled the country, and he was elected president in 1976 without any opposition next to him. Then in 1981, there was a mercenary aggression that came from South Africa. Then in 1982, the Aldabra Atoll was named World Heritage Site. We have two World Heritage Sites in the Seychelles, the Aldabra and the Valley. Then in 1982, there was a mutiny, we call it a rebellion, army mutiny, at the army camp there at Yonville. And from here, the government started the first flight. The Seychelles was established to be the first national airline. And from here in 1986, the late John Paul won a visit here for 24 hours. He held a mass at the Seychelles Stadium. And from here, you can see we have the IoT. At that time, the tuna factory, which is one of the world's biggest tuna factory, which was opened in 1987. And from here, you can see the late Mrs. Daniel Desajon, who was the first Minister for Foreign Affairs. And from here, you can see 1990, the President of France, Mr. François Mitterrand, was on a state visit to the Seychelles. And in 1991, after pressure was being put on the Seychelles government, Mr. Lene reintroduced the multi-party system. And Mr. Moncon was allowed to return to Seychelles after 15 years in exile. Here you can see Mr. Moncon with his wife and his son. Then in 1993, we held the Seychelles Indian Ocean Game. The game is every 4 years. It rotates from the country, from all the islands from the Indian Ocean. Then we have in 2004, Mr. Lene hand power over, without election, hand power over to Mr. Jean-Michel, who became the president. He was the vice president. And Mr. Lene after 27 years, and Mr. Jean-Michel ruled for 12 years. Then he gave power to Mr. Danifort to become the president of Seychelles. And from here, you can see the two Seychellois fishermen who was taken by the Somali pirates to Somalia. This picture, you can see them on the arrival to Seychelles, and in the middle is the third president of Seychelles, Mr. James Michel. And here, it was the first female Chief Justice to be elected. This was Mrs. Matilda Toumi. And also in 2018, the President of Sri Lanka came here for a state visit. Okay? And from here, you can see all the flags that represent the Seychelles before. This flag was the lys flower during the time when the French came here in 1770. This was the flag of the king. And after the revolution in France, and the tricolor was the flag of the Republic of France. Then, when the British came here for the capitulation, the first capitulation, they introduced this flag. Then after they established themselves in 1810, this was the Union Jack flag. Until 1976, when we get the independence, we became the first republic. This was the flag of the first republic. Then after that, during the coup, Mr. Lene introduced the one-party state flag. Then after that, from the multi-party, when we have a constitution, we have a new flag, which is still now today, it's the Seychelles flag now. Coste Cecile. From here, you can see many pictures. And these pictures is at the old long pier. You can see the fishermen with the fresh catch from the sea. And here you can see a famous drummer, which we call Machende. We have a musical instrument. We call it a tambour. This we have goat skin on it, and it play at night. We hit it with the heat from the fire. Then you play it to get the sound. And now we are going to enter into the Creole culture. Like I told, Seychelles culture, we don't live in tribes. We have only one culture, one language, and one people. And this is the Creole culture. The Creole is the mix between the European and the African people. That's why we are a multiracial nation. And from here, you can see many pictures which depicted during the Second World War, when people was giving handouts for food. And this was how they were dressed during the marriage. This is all the invitees for the marriage. And from here you can see many hairstyle was how the women used to comb their hair during the 1960s. And also all the wear for ladies, for gentlemen, because at that time also many people used to work in labor. Then labor was more lifting. And to prevent hernia, they have to put this on them, so to prevent hernia. And from here, you can see the suit that people wear during the marriage, the bride and the bridegroom. And here is the traditional costume for men of the Seychelles, and this one for ladies of the Seychelles. The use of a scarf, then the peignoir and the casaque, the skirt and the blouse. And from here you can see a kind of dance that is called sokwe. Sokwe was invented here by the slave who was the free slave from Malawi. When they came here, they bring this kind of dance. So during the night, you put a mask and you take your clothes, you stitch banana leaf on it, then you dance. And here are many traditional games that was introduced here. Here we have the makon. The makon, it was introduced here by the soldier that worked in the British Army from the east coast of Africa. After they finished their service from the army, they bring that with them here. They used to play it across the road here. Then we have many musical instruments that you can see what I was telling about the tambour that is made of goat skin. We have different tambour. We have the muchak drum. We have the sega drum, which was one of the traditional dance of Seychelles. Then we have the cascabel that we put seeds in a coconut, then we shake it to get the sound. Then we have the triangle, we call triang in Creole, that we play to get the sound also. Then we have the triton shell, which we use like a trumpet. Then we have accordion that we play also. Then this is a new invention that we call makalumpo. It's like a traditional harp that we play. We have the lead, the rhythm, then the bass. Then also we have the traditional musical instrument from Tompa. He was a famous player of this. This is called a bomb. And this one, zez, that he used to play. This you use a bitter wood to make it. Then you have a string on it that you play. And here, you just press it to get the note. And then we have the banjo, which were introduced here by the French and the British into our culture. And from here, as you know, we Seychelles, we like a lot of things that we can get it from the environment. So from the environment, we get the vacua, the pandamas that we use to make bags. Then we used to have a sea turtle shell that we get the shell, and we make many accessoires for ladies like necklace, earring. But nowadays this is prohibited because the sea turtle is protected. And you can see many artifacts that is made traditionally in Seychelles, because this you don't need to buy it from overseas to import it. And this, after you have finished using it, you can throw it into the environment. It will not cause any harm to the environment. It's environmental friendly. As you see, Seychelles is surrounded by sea. We have many types of fishing gear. We have the nets that we can get the mackerel and the sardine. Then we have the fish trap that we can put on the reef from the morning, and at night we go and remove it. Then this one you can keep it for overnight. And from here we have many traditional tools that we use in building our, like this one is we use for rotary the plant. The blacksmith use it, and these are all the tools that it used to make this watering plant object. And from here you can see all the traditional tools that the carpenter used to build many things like houses, chairs, tables. And these petals and mortar we use to grind the maize to get the flour from it, so that we can use to bake bread, cake. And from here, this is a traditional way of fire. We can use charcoal, which is available here, and also firewood on 3 stone that we call it a cooking tripod, that we put the cooking pot on it. And here is the traditional bag that we call it capacha. Long before the capacha were used to eat, when you go to the forest to get fruits, or even though you go to the market to get fish, you used to put it in this capacha. And at that time, if a man cannot build a capacha, he cannot get married. Then was this like like a cabinet nowadays in your kitchen. We used to hang up many things on it so that it can get dry. We also have, this is half the coco de mer that we use to, like a plate to eat or to prepare food in it. And also to take lentil, rice to measure in the shop. These are all the cooking utensils that we're still using in the kitchen, outside kitchen. And because at that time kitchen was not together in the house, so separate. The idea is that if the kitchen caught fire, only the kitchen will caught fire. But nowadays the kitchen is integrated into the house. If the kitchen got fire, the whole house burned down. And this is the traditional room, and this is the traditional, because at that time also a lot of people, most of the house was made of wood. And you have to have the polish, the red polish, then the brush for you to be able to clean out the floor. And you have to do like that. And in the house, boys and girls, both of them has to know how to use that, because eventually the boys will grow up and they will have their own house, so they can do it to the house. And also here, you can see at that time during the French and the British, there was a lot of magic, of black magic. And here was all, this thing was taken by the police from a witchcraft man. Many people, after they gone to church, they went to a witch doctor and asked him to do them some favor. And from here, you can see there's, in our culture, we have a story called Sungula. And here you can see him being stuck on a giant land tortoise. Because what happened, he went to the king swimming pool to have a bath. Then he was stuck on the tortoise after he has taken the bath. And from here, from this picture, so you can see the first president of Seychelles, which was Mr. James Mongan. And here's all the gifts that the president of the state visit they received. So for them to show the people what kind of gift they have been given by the different presidents, so they give us the. And from here you can see one of the Arabao. On his visit to Bahrain, he was given one of the Arabao. This was the bow that used to bring the slave to the Seychelles. It was the Arabao that took the slave from the East Africa on the way to Zanzibar. But the British intercept them and take all the slaves here in the Seychelles. And also you can see the gift from the president of India, Prime Minister of India, and also the president of Sri Lanka. And here we have an exhibition, and we're telling about the slavery in the Seychelles, how the slavery was in the Seychelles in the 18th century. From here you can see the first settlers. When they arrive here, they bring 7 slaves with them. And you can see their name here: Miguel, Joan, Malador, Maganga, and Mari. The slave was taken from Africa and was brought here to start the first settlement on Central Island. And during the British Revolution, the French Revolution, the slave was abolished in the French. But in all the French colony, the slavery continued. And during that time, they have a law called the Code Noir, the Black Code, which was given to how to deal with any slave. For example, if a slave is escaped from your place, when you catch him, what punishment he has to endure. This was all about the slave punishment. If they have children with one another, who will take care of the children, if the children is going to be a slave in itself or not. Then after that, in 1835, slavery was abolished because the British took over the island in 1810, and they abolished the slavery here, which the French introduced. So you can see many pictures and slave family, and this one you can see the slave when they were freed in 1835. And one of the famous slaves was this slave girl who came here when he was 12 years old. Her name was Atikulu. She said he was taken from Gonte. Gonte, that's mean from Africa. And after that, he died in 1958 at the age of 100 years old. And he was the last liberated slave. And from here, you can see many small children who was taken slave and was brought here to work on the coconut plantation and many other plantations. And from here, this was in 1809 when a guy named Pompey killed his slave master and he was sentenced to death by burning. And here you can see he's being burned by the white settlers. And from over here, you can see Venton. Venton was a place established in 1875 by the famous man called Mr. Vent, who was a reverend, and the slave children was sent there to learn the Bible, to learn how to cook and how to survive. This place is still there, and it was closed in 1889. And because of the children was integrated into the public school here in the Seychelles. And from here also you can see many slave activity which the slave used to do. So I will end up here. If anything that you have seen is very interesting,